Okay, get this. Imagine a single company so incredibly ambitious that its goal isn't just to make a profit, but to fundamentally change the economic identity of its entire country. Well, that's the story we're diving into today. The story of VietDak and its absolutely audacious plan to redefine how Vietnam sells its food to the rest of the world.
I mean, really think about that question. It sounds almost impossible, right? One company rewriting a nation's entire export playbook. But here's the thing, this isn't some theoretical case study from a business school textbook. This is a real strategy in motion right now. So the real question isn't if they're trying, but how on earth they think they can actually pull it off. And this, right here, lays out the core of their big idea. On one side, you've got the old way. Picture a simple trader, a small boat getting tossed around by the waves of the global market, just buying low and selling high, hoping to make a tiny profit. But on the other side is VietDak's vision, a massive, coordinated platform. Think of it like a mothership that brings together farms, factories, and logistics to create something way more powerful and valuable.
So the key takeaway is this. They aren't just trying to build another company, they're trying to build an operating system for an entire industry. Think about that for a second. One single entity that can guarantee the quality, the quantity, and the reliability of everything from a grain of rice to a coffee bean for the entire country. That's not just a business, that's practically a form of economic diplomacy. So you might be asking, just how big is this ambition? Well, the goal isn't just to be a successful company. The goal is to become a true national champion. And trust me, the numbers they're targeting are just staggering. Let's start with rice. Their target is 2 million tons. Now, to put that number in perspective, that is enough rice to fill over 100,000 shipping containers. It's a colossal amount. And it doesn't stop with rice. For coffee, they're aiming for 500,000 tons. Again, these aren't just corporate targets scribbled on a whiteboard. These are numbers that, if they hit them, would literally start to reshape Vietnam's entire export profile. So what do those massive numbers actually mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, it means VietDak is aiming to control a quarter of all Vietnamese rice exports, nearly a third of its coffee, and another quarter of its pepper. This isn't just about being a big player anymore. This is about becoming the market. This table really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, their targets for rice and coffee would make them a dominant force practically overnight. But then look at cashews and pepper. Even their smaller goals are huge. The plan is crystal clear. Achieve market leadership across every single key category. Okay, so how on earth do they plan to do this? It sounds impossible. Well, the answer lies in this really unique and powerful strategic model they call G2G2B. You could say this is their secret sauce. It's this fascinating two-step dance. First, you have the government-to-government part. So instead of VietDak having to cold call buyers, they leverage the power of the state itself. You've got Vietnamese ministries and embassies going out and securing these huge framework deals with other nations. Then comes step two, government to business. Once that big deal is signed, VietDak steps in as the official national implementation unit to actually make it happen, mobilizing the entire domestic supply chain. They basically get to skip the line and go straight to the biggest contracts on the table. And that puts them in this incredible strategic sweet spot. They become the central operator, the gearbox that connects the powerful engine of government diplomacy to the wheels of on-the-ground farming and logistics. It's a ridiculously powerful and unique position to be in. All right, so that's the big picture, the grand plan. But how does it actually work for each different product? Because this isn't a one-size-fits-all strategy. Nope, they have a specific, pretty clever playbook for everything they want to sell. Let's take a look at coffee. See, anyone can sell raw green beans. That's a low-margin commodity game. The real money, what their plan actually calls the gold mine, is in value-added products like roasted and instant coffee. So while, yeah, they'll sell some raw beans just for cash flow, the true goal here is to build a global coffee brand that captures way more value from every single bean. And this tailored strategy applies to everything. For rice, it's all about sheer scale, uniting the country's biggest players to fulfill those massive government-to-government deals. For pepper, it's about trust, building a premium brand that people will pay more for based on organic quality and total traceability. And for cashews, they're not even trying to win the volume war. Instead, they're focusing on sophisticated processing to supply private labels for big global retailers. Smart. I just love this quote for their tea strategy. It's so simple but so smart. It's not about being the biggest, it's about being the most compelling. For a premium product like tea, they know that the story, where it comes from, the region, the history, is just as valuable as what's actually inside the package. Now, this is an amazing plan on paper, but let's be real. The execution is incredibly challenging. In fact, this whole grand strategy rests on 5 foundational pillars. And these aren't just important, they're totally non-negotiable. If even one of them cracks, the whole ambitious structure could just come tumbling down. And here they are. First, they need total supply chain control to guarantee quality. They absolutely need the market access that the G2G model gives them. They have to have deep processing and branding to actually make good money and escape that commodity trader trap. And of course, underpinning it all is financing. Moving millions of tons of product around the world requires immense capital. Without it, the engine can't even start. So when you put it all together, what you're looking at is a super high-stakes venture with 2 very clear and very different potential outcomes. This is a future that really has to be won.
This is the fork in the road. I mean, look at this. If they get it wrong, if they falter on one of those 5 pillars and just end up being a simple trader, they'll be lucky to hit maybe 5 or 10% of their target. They'll just remain another small player competing on price. But if they get it right, if they pull this off, they won't just be a company. They'll become a true national export platform, a global giant that competes on its system and its brand, what the source material calls the Ulam of Vietnam. The stakes just could not be higher.
And that really brings us to the final and maybe most fascinating question of all. Is this G2G2B model, this unique blend of private ambition and state power, a whole new blueprint for development? Could we be looking at the future of how emerging nations build their own global giants to compete on the world stage? Well, the success or failure of VietDak might just give us the answer.